Warframe is an absolutely legendary game, has been on an incredible run for more than a decade now, and is currently more popular than ever. I mean, has anyone ever heard of a game hitting its peak player count 8 years after it was released, and then its second highest ever concurrent player count 11 whole years after being released? Throughout this incredible run, we've seen almost everything imaginable when it comes to game design. From a morality system to a romance system with like 10 different characters and counting, to space battles, randomly generated maps, and entire open world sections. If you name it and it's something typical to be included in a game, chances are Warframe has at least tried it at some point. Obviously, not every single feature ever seen in gaming is in Warframe. However, it absolutely has a ton, and one of the most unique traits, and in my opinion, one that should be brought back into the present day game, was the community-led missions. Back in the day, there would be massive events like the Gradivus Dilemma, the Eyes of Blight, and Operation Two-Man of Rigor. There's some more than just those, but in my opinion, those are the three most notable ones. These quests were super notable and unique even within Warframe because they could change the entire future of the game. Like the side you choose or the progress you'd make in the event really mattered. For example, originally when the Fomorian fleets invaded, they threatened to destroy the relays that we use every day. And if we failed to stop the fleet from winning, they would really destroy the relay. This resulted in some of the relays being protected, while other ones got totally destroyed, depending on which ones the community chose to defend. In this video, I want to focus on one particular event, and that was the Gradivus Dilemma. The, in my opinion, most important community-led event that had the biggest impact on the game to this day. Well, I guess it depends on how you look at it, because if no one defended any relays during the Eyes of Blight operation, every single relay would have been destroyed, which would have been like really bad and led to a pretty major impact. But hey, that didn't happen, so I'm not counting potential outcomes here. Baron Katir would just have to pull up directly to our ships, or we'd be fighting in some like random ass clan dojos or something. Before we can talk about how the outcome of the Gradivus Dilemma changed Warframe forever, we need to talk about how the dilemma was actually started, and who the major players were. The two factions that were involved with the Gradivus Dilemma were the Grineer and Corpus, which is expected. Back in the day, especially in 2013, when this operation was active, there really wasn't a whole ton of factions influencing the Origin system. If something major was happening, it was either the Grineer, the Corpus, or a combination of both of them. There really weren't a whole lot of options to mix it up back then like there is now. I mean, we've got the Tekrot, the Orkin, the Void, Sentience, Infestation, Skaldra, Narmir, and others all vying for attention now. So it makes sense that not every story today is about our old sweethearts. Anyway, the two leaders most intimately involved in this were Aladvi from the Corpus and Sargus Rook from the Grineer. The conflict started because of Warframe caches found below the surface of Mars. At least I think that's the case. There's actually different sources and conflicting sources that I'll show on the screen claiming they were found on Sedna. So they were either found on Mars or Sedna, I don't know which. If you played the event, let us know down below if you remember, but you might not because it was like 12 years ago. Regardless, Aladvi discovered several caches containing intact Warframes buried beneath the surface of Mars. And if you're unfamiliar with Warframe history, Mars used to be under Corpus control, which is why you can still find a few Corpus missions lingering around its edges today. Now, here's where the problem begins. According to a very old and very fragile treaty between the Grineer and the Corpus, neither side was allowed to possess or utilize Orkin technology. It was one of the few rules both factions actually agreed on, partly because the Orkin nearly wiped out the entire system, and partly because both factions knew that whoever mastered Orkin tech would either A, have a huge advantage, or probably accidentally just kill everyone. So when Sargus Rook learned that Aladvi had found and immediately moved to experiment on these Warframes, he had some major issues with it. He saw a full-blown treaty violation, and he saw that treaty being broken as a huge opportunity to further Grineer expansion. Unfortunately for Aladvi, the Grineer weren't going to sit back and ignore his violation. The general overseeing the region closest to Aladvi was none other than General Sargus Rook, and he's probably the single most accomplished commander in the history of the Grineer. Sargus Rook likely would have actually followed the treaty and would have destroyed the Warframes on sight if he had found them first. So he was absolutely enraged that Alad had recovered them, hidden them, and started attempting to experiment on them. Sargus Rook immediately contacted Alad and confronted him, demanding that he turn the Warframes over at once or face heavy repercussions for violating the treaty. Alad pretended to mull over the decision, using every second to strengthen his hold on Mars and fortify his labs around the Orokin relics. After dancing around the issue and wasting as much time as possible, Alad had finally ran out the clock. Sargus Rook made things very clear. Either Alad hands over the Warframes right now, or Sargus Rook launches a full-scale invasion of Mars to get the frames. And if Rook had to invade, he wasn't planning on leaving. He'd take the planet and its entire population with him. Alad, seeing no more time to stall, and being the absolute freak he is, basically told Sargus Rook to bring it, and that he'd have to pry the Warframes from his cold, dead hands. Well, not his hands. He probably made his crewmen's cold, dead hands, but either way, the message was sent. And with that, the treaty was shattered, the diplomatic line was crossed, and the war between the Grineer and the Corpus was reignited, at least in Martian space. This is how one of the most defining conflicts in the history of Warframe began. The Gradivus Dilemma was a very unique situation, and this is where the title of this video comes into play. I'm guessing I titled this video something like, Warframe's community changed the game forever. And well, in this situation, that's actually accurate. You see, the Lotus and Tenno didn't want the Corpus and Grineer conflict on Mars to escalate into a full-scale war, because they would pretty much decimate the entire Origin system. And that would lead to the deaths of billions of innocents. I mean, there literally couldn't have been a worse thing that happened in the Origin system back when this happened. And since back then, the Tenno were known as the police of the Origin system, we had to find a way to end this conflict quickly and stop it from getting out of hand. So to help end the war quickly, the Lotus gave us a choice to either side with the Grineer or the Corpus. And whichever side received more support from players in the community would win. Yes, us, the players, literally got to decide the future of all of Mars. We got to choose who to side with and who would control the planet up to even today. Just in case you're interested, this event took place over 6 days in 2013, from October 24th to October 30th. Anyway, after the Lotus told us that we should get involved, she then said she didn't want to sway us and told us to decide who to support ourselves. Alad and Sargus Rook both realized that we were almost certainly going to get involved, and they quickly attempted to make cases on why we should support them. Alad attempted to appeal to us by explaining how dangerous it would be to reward Grineer aggression. The Grineer were the primary reason that we were ever woken up, because they were so aggressive and were destroying so much of the system. Not only that, but the Grineer treat the peoples they conquer extremely poorly, meaning that if we did choose to side with the Grineer, they would likely pretty much slaughter all of the civilians on the planet Mars, or put them into work camps where they would likely die, just like it'd be worse because they'd have to work before they die. I'd rather just die instead of hard labor and then dying. But let me know in the comments below what you guys would pick. Honestly, there's a really good argument on why you'd want to side with the Corpus. It would probably just be the moral thing to do, because of how badly the Grineer treat those they conquer. Now, General Sargus Rook came at us with a different tactic. He didn't want to talk about how evil the Corpus were, or about how the Corpus aggression is harming the system. He came with a deal. He said if we help him conquer Mars, then whatever Warframes Alad took are ours. And he'd return whatever was ours when he found it. In exchange, we let him have his way with the Corpus and the people on Mars. Now, an important thing to note, back in 2013, people really didn't know what the operator was. Back then, everybody just thought that the Warframes were our players, that the Warframes were the Tenno. So just keep in mind that when I reveal what decision the community made. Anyway, it was actually a close decision, with different platforms choosing different factions to side with. Xbox players decided to support the Grineer. The PS players decided to support the Corpus. And the winner, by split decision, decided by the PC players, were the Grineer. In general, Sargus, Rook. Yes, ultimately, 2 of the 3 platforms that Warframe were on at the time decided to side with the Grineer. Sorry, Switch players, all 3 of you didn't get any say on one of the most important game-changing events in the history of Warframe, because I'm pretty sure that the Switch didn't exist in 2013. Did it? I don't know. Did it, guys? Let me know in the comments, but it certainly didn't have Warframe ported on it. Also, by the way, I've actually reached Mastery Rank 6 on the Nintendo Switch, and it really doesn't run that bad. I have no clue how Digital Extremes managed to get a game like Warframe to run significantly better than Pokemon on the Switch, but hey, they did it. I mean, to be fair, all the pixels do kind of blend together when you have it in the handheld mode, but I was able to make it work. Anyway, as I mentioned earlier, I think the deciding factor that led to most players picking a side with Sargus Rook and the Grineer is that players thought that we were physically the Warframes, and they weren't just vessels that we were piloting. We chose to save our brothers and sisters over millions, no probably billions of people that fell to Grineer rule. We picked loyalty over morality. Another factor that I think helped decide the outcome was how Sargus Rook and Alavi interacted with you throughout these missions. When you sided with the Grineer, Sargus showered you with praise and had real joy in his fights while fighting alongside us. He respected our ability to spread blood and admired it, and he also respected our loyalty to our fellow Tenno. Alavi, on the other hand, was somewhat antagonistic even as an ally, and thus discussed how he looked forward to dissecting the Tenno he had taken. Then, as an enemy, Sargus mostly tried to convince us to change sides so we could save the Tenno. But when we fought against Alavi, he was just an asshole. I'll play some of these voice lines, but it's honestly pretty clear who was friendlier towards us.
That's right, Tenno. Now we fight together. Now we crush the greedy milk from their skulls. The Corpus will pay for their crimes with their useless lives.
So, the betrayers are fighting for the dogs now. Why am I not surprised? The sooner my Zanuka project is completed, the better. The system must be ridden of your hypocrisy. Tenno, this was the only rational choice. And please, don't worry about your friends. I have grand plans for them.
Attention, Tenno! It's not too late to change sides. Not too late to reject Corpus lies. Not too late to save your kind. Tenno, Alan will betray you. Alan will defile your kind. Alan will bleed from his selfish eyes as I crush him with your metal corpse.
Grineer victory, a common theme in the post-Orc and Origin system. They're unstoppable, an ever-encroaching empire that constantly hungers for all that's in front of them. Infinite, numberless, they're soldiers, faceless, with their only unique traits being the different scars and deformities they have. The Tenno stood by them as they decimated all things non-Grineer, slaughtering the inhabitants of Mars in their ruthless takeover. All except the Tenno. Merciless, aggressive, and powerful are all things that describe the Grineer, but backstabbers isn't one of them. And they hand the Tenno their sleeping brothers and sisters before restarting the slaughter. This was our choice. This is what we decided. The blood of billions was on our hands. We had shown loyalty to our own before any sense of duty, any morals, and any beliefs. We take one last look at the death, the fires, the Grineer flags rising in the distance, and we leave. Mars has changed forever. Because of this victory caused by a community, General Sargus Rook assumed control over the planet Mars, and the Grineer quickly began to settle in. However, despite the Grineer being the primary force on Mars now, there are still nodes in Martian space that have both Corpus and infested enemies, making it one of the most unique areas in the entire game, and the only planet to have nodes controlled by the first 3 factions added to the game. But yeah, this is, in my opinion, by far one of the most interesting operations in Warframe history, because of the massive differences that it made in both the lore and in actual gameplay, with the planet originally being completely Corpus changed to mostly Grineer rule. It's been 10 years since this event happened, and its results still affect the Warframe world, with Grineer holding Mars to this very day. And in my opinion, it also forever cemented Sargus Rook as one of the most legendary characters in the lore of Warframe, with him being the only real individual to make territorial gains that have upheld, because of how intelligently he interacted with the Tenno to get us on his side. Let me know if you played in this operation and who you chose to support. It'd be super interesting to hear the perspectives of the players who actually got to experience this absolutely legendary, game-changing operation. That is all I have for this video. Let me know who you guys would support in the comments below if you played the event today. And if you did play this event, let me know if you'd still support Sargus Rook, knowing that the Tenno weren't actually in any danger since we are not one with the Warframes. Something I'd be super interested in is if they did this type of quest again, and let us help make decisions on where the game goes next. I mean, it seems weird that as soon as crossplay became a thing, which would make these events easier than ever, I'd imagine, they decided to just forever move on from them. I think that an operation like this would work great for assigning something like the Corpus Civil War, which would be between Parvos and the Corpus Board of Directors. I mean, it would literally fit that perfectly. But yeah, that's all I have for this one, and a massive thank you to everyone who made it this far. I really do appreciate it. And a huge massive shout out to my members, Sonic King 5000 and Jay. You guys are the greatest, the coolest, the awesomest. Don't know if that's a word, but it describes you. And I appreciate all the support you give this channel for so long, for like more than a year now. Anyway, that's it for me. Stay blessed, stay happy, most importantly, stay safe out there, everybody. Goodbye.